Hi, this is Lester Martin, and I'm going to do a quick review of a book I just finished. It's called Enterprise 2.0 or 2.0 by Andrew McAfee. Generally speaking, the author, Andrew McAfee, coined the phrase Enterprise 2.0, and he coined that as the incarnation, I guess, of Web 2.0 technologies in companies, organizations, etc., in the enterprise. And his view of Web 2.0 is not exactly the technologist or the programmer's view, which is often the technology such as Ajax and others that allow a much more interactive web presence. Web 2.0 to Mr. McAfee here is that allowing, I guess, that next rev of web-based applications where people are highly collaborative, much more interactive, much more social, etc. So that's the backdrop of the book. It's worthy of starting off, and there's some good times in the book about collaboration tools in general, and why should we be using those? And I think you see as you're looking at the bullets here, basically the old notion of many, the crowdsourcing notion, the collective intelligence. I think Eric Raymond said it best: with enough eyeballs, all bugs are shallow. So if people are looking at things and people own things together, code, documentation, whatever, we're going to raise up. We're going to be the collective intelligence is going to drive the content. And just to point out that while there is a lot of folks that might think the opposite, it's not true. And, I think Dilbert had a little fun with it there. That knowledge sharing amongst a team using collaboration software may not be a good thing, but it definitely is. And those concerns that the lowest common denominator are truly invalidated when we see this in practice. So, Web 2.0 and Enterprise 2.0, there have been obviously technologies around for some period of time to help with collaboration, and I think most people immediately think, I use email, I collaborate. But those are some of the first versions, of course. Groupware products, notes, definitely something a lot of us have seen throughout our career at different places. But definitely Exchange and Outlook fall in that camp, and that's very popular now. Great benefits, calendaring, messaging, including some of the instant messaging as well. Notes and the Microsoft Suite do that as well. But ideally, it's much more of a communication channel, not an information searching or information sharing area. So that kind of led to, and really even before, in many ways, that Groupware got rolling, knowledge management, knowledge bases, etc. Still probably relatively useful in a highly supportive role where people have a limited number of questions that are coming at them from a large audience, and so knowledge bases and knowledge management systems still make sense there, but really overall they just didn't get the value we thought we'd get out of those. Definitely from those, what's still around or what's really being used today everywhere. Well, surely email and other instant style messaging options are great. They're useful, but they are what they are, and they're information channels, meaning they're a conduit between one person to one or one person to many. And that blast, and they may get shared, they may get forwarded, but they're not really a truly crowdsource oriented collaboration tool. And then definitely people are just turning around and Googling, just Google it, right? Find out what's out there. It could be on your internet, but often we go outside our internet and find information outside of the company walls. So the author talks about several trends that make Enterprise 2.0 possible and available. And definitely, the platforms that exist today, free or close to free, definitely easy or getting easier to use platforms are out there. And, it's a contrast from what we just mentioned, or I just referred to, of messaging via channel. So email is a channel, texting is a channel, and those are relatively private and non-sharing style communication channels. And you know what? Sometimes that's exactly what you want to do or you need to do, depending on the situation. But overall, if we're talking about collaboration, what we really need to look for is a move from channels to platforms, where platforms let people's edits, their changes, their ads, their comments be globally visible, greatest audience possible, and they're persistent. They're going to be around. You make including changes as a documentation or a diagram. Something is evolving, changing, and there's reasons why. There's the who made the change. There's opportunities to explain why, and a lot of programmers think of a version control system. When they think about these kinds of tools, and these are those tools. They're MediaWiki, they're Confluence, they're a host of wiki-based tools that are out there. Security could be applied. Again, it's global and it's persistent. It's public and it's persistent, I think is the phrase I like to use. And then again, it has to be really, really easy to use. And this is where I think the tools are growing up. There are some, a lot of folks love media markup languages. And I like them. I tell you, they get complicated when it gets a really deep, nested, interesting table, for example. And I think a WYSIWYG editor, and maybe I'll pick on a product, Confluence Wiki has a great, has moved to that WYSIWYG style editing. But that, coupling it with packages that allow you right there in the documentation of authoring some kind of image or flow chart or system diagram, business process model, etc. And never leaving your package is a nice, smooth interface there. Another trend is, we're getting away from, or we're realizing that, in collaborating, when we're trying to collaborate, when we don't really know exactly what we're doing, or we would benefit from getting information out there and getting people tightening it up and improving it, etc. That getting rid of any kind of imposed structure is nothing but a positive statement there. So structure in the book at least is referred to as workflows and decision rights, how the interdependencies of all of the information itself, the formatting, etc. Just a rigorous information approach that says things must be understood, classified, owned, etc. And often, very often, in my experience, it's a large barrier to entry. Information in this kind of structure is so formal. People are often not really afraid, but don't have the time. If I'm going to have to put my name on this, and it has this level of rigor, then I better put that time and effort into it. So sometimes it's the opposite. It's someone realizing the bar is set so high, I just don't have time to do that. So again, that structure is great, of course, for true enterprise packages that solve problems. It's definitely true for transactional systems, and I'm not trying to suggest we should change or unwind all the technology and applications we built over the years in the world. I'm focusing again on that collaboration, information sharing, etc. And interestingly enough, in the book, and little known to me, that there was some history on Wikipedia and the original name Nupedia, and great kind of couple pages talking about this multi-stage process, who could be an author. It was very elaborate, but as you see there, 18 months later, I think about $250,000 to spend later, they had 12 articles, and simultaneously, or toward the end of that period, the leaders of Wikipedia threw out a MediaWiki site and called it Wikipedia, and they asked the authors to look at it, and they turned it on its side, and they said, let's not worry about it. Let's let that structure or process or organization, let that, if it's going to happen, let's let the audience, let's let the contributors drive that over time. And I think they saw some monumental growth, as we all know. Again, you see right there at the very bottom, they got Wikipedia itself proper, started up middle of January back in 2001. End of the month, 2 or 3 weeks later, they're at 600 plus articles. Around March timeframe, 2200, July, I think there were a little over 7,000 of that same year. By the end of year 2001, they were over 19,000 articles. 19,000, not 18 over 18, 18 over 12 months, etc. And then, there you go. You see the rise mid 2008, around 2.5 million articles, and then today, well over 4 million articles. And then I did a little splash of some of the non-English articles counts there as well. very impressive. A lot of content on the book about how that happened, and that approach, and definitely worthy of a read. And then, again, kind of following that lack of imposed structure, getting rid of formal taxonomy that a few people decide how information should be categorized and laid out and labeled, etc. Flip it on its end. Let people label things that the way it makes sense to them. Apply tags, labels, whatever you like to call them, and that will normalize itself. That will drive this notion of folksonomy. That will drive things up, as you see there. Maybe this audience here, Hadoop looks to be a pretty interesting thing. Analytics is another thing as well. And I think I mentioned this, so the trend is let that structure emerge. Wikipedia has a structure today if you go look, but Wikipedia built that structure over countless iterations and runs, and it's being perfected. It's always evolving to some point even now, and it makes sense for that organization, for that content, for that information. But that's what we're saying. Let structure emerge itself from your world, and let tools, we want to leverage the tools that are out there, such as by pages, by content being persistent and public and reachable. We talked about the persistence included the location, the URL. And if we're letting these sites, these blogs, these pages all interlink with each other, we're getting some inherent structure itself. What's interesting, what's relevant by the fact that things are cross-linking to each other. That's a great thing. We see that Google has used that, and that's been the secret to their success all along. And there's a big phrase, emergent platforms, often in this book. Where emergence is just what it says. They're global. Let global structure surface. Let it emerge. Ergo, it's emergent. As a result of these local interactions, based on these references, based on tagging, etc. And I think there we go. I think I mentioned on tagging. Let people tag as it's appropriate to them in their own best of interest, and you'll find that self-interests, where they're relevant, they'll be common, and that's a good thing. We'll see that all throughout. So there we go. The author uses the phrase emergent social software platforms pretty heavily in the book, ESSPs. Another, acronym, there's slates that ESPs rely on these, and this is nothing new, right? Search, you got to be able to, a definition of an ESSP definitely has to be able to find things. We have to have linking like crazy is going to help drive the value of the search results. We want authoring. We want as many people as possible. In other words, everyone feeling confident to be able to come to this environment, author, and have credibility. You want to drive that content coming from folks that maybe have never contributed in this way before. Again, use tags to build that folksonomy, excuse me. And then you want technologies like you see on Amazon, where you buy one thing or you're looking at one thing and it says, hey, if you like this, you probably like that. So you want that kind of model. And again, I think that the activities drive that. On Amazon, people buying things drive that. In your intranet, using these collaboration-oriented tools, then voting and rating and liking, commenting, linking, that's going to drive the help to the next person. That's going to drive the suggested content. That's going to drive those kinds of venues, which I think are great. And then all of that said, if we're doing this right, there's a lot of information, and signals is a mechanism, a phrase kind of meaning that you still want to be able to configure a listener basically on that massive activity stream to say, that's all important. I want to be able to see everything, but what's really, really useful to me. And I think you kind of see some of the web-facing properties such as Facebook kind of helping you out in this way. Hey, these are your better friends or your closer friends, and trying to glean off folks maybe that you don't talk to, etc. So again, that was more of an extensions example, but I'm sure in Facebook, as well as these other tools, you can fine-tune what you'd like to see and when you'd like to see it. The book spends a good amount of time on SWT. This is a big sociology topic around a work called The Strength of Weak Ties. Very interesting stuff that I myself will do some additional research on. But that said, to keep this moving along, generally speaking, this is a pretty straightforward concept. We're people that we work with all the time. Those are our strong ties. There are people that we interact with somewhat periodically. They might be our weak circle or our weak ties. People in the organization, people that might have some interests, but we just don't interact with pretty normally. But there's some availability out there. They might be our potential ones. And then there is really people we just have no tie with, or and may never have a tie with. And the book talks a lot about these tools can help us do what you see there, right? You're moving people in as appropriate, trying to bring those strengthen those strong ties. You make them even stronger, but convert those potential people, potential ties to either weak or strong ties, and interact with strangers. And I can be honest, I've seen this in 2 organizations where these things are unbelievably successful when I have a strong tie community of 15 people and someone else a community of 20, and etc. And you have these pockets, but we have interests. So 2 or 3 of us have an interest in this. So I'm interacting with someone else. So another one. The next thing you know, you're meeting people that are way out in that none or potential. So just the opportunity to interact with people in your organization that you may never have stumbled across, may have never known has something to contribute to what you're being involved in, or definitely has an interest in what you do, can share it. It gives you those aha moments and makes you say, I'm thrilled that we're trying to do this. Again, collaboration is really, if I had to say there's one word to talk about 90% of this book, it's around collaboration. And this was stolen from the CIA folks. There was several case studies in the book, and one of them centered around the CIA and post 9/11, etc. But they stood up a media wiki instance, called it Interlinked, across the 16 intelligence community agencies in the federal government. And this is what the 2 gentlemen that were trying to promote this heavily, and they said basically, and I think we've talked on these, right? Work at the broadest possible audience. Get out of your team. If you're describing something about your team or about your business unit or about your product, why don't you describe it to everybody? Why don't you put it out there in a situation where the world can see? People are going to learn about you. They might even provide some input you missed. Just a great thing there. Work topically, not organizationally. So often we all have the same kind of base topics to get us going. And it's interesting. I've been able to do this as a kind of a collaboration coach to ask folks, hey, look, you and this person and this other person are all authoring the same information, slightly different. Let's raise it up to that public, that broadest possible audience, and focus on that. And then if you need to put an organizational spin on that, again, link back to the base information. It's almost, for those object-oriented programmers, almost a subtyping of the most generic information, and it makes a lot of sense when you think of it that way for those with that background. And then, another principle is just simply, you got to unwind, you got to think about changing your processes. I see people all the time start up a long email thread, and it keeps adding a person and adding a person, trying to get that nugget of information. And I challenge them, and I work with them to say, hey, let's take this out. Let's author a topically, not organizationally, wiki page around that information. Let's describe what we know, and let's get it out there. And let's tag it, let's put the labels on it, and let the power of those weak ties getting strengthened, etc. Let information flow out to others. And guess what? That information starts getting crowdsourced, it starts getting challenged, it starts getting augmented, and we end up with a much better product. And a product, in here is information, a much better block of information than we would have ever got playing in that little email channel. The flip of all that, I'll have to be honest, and this is what my single contribution to these slides, the rest has been right out of the book. Seeing this firsthand at a large company that I worked at, 300,000 people, global technology company, was that often that level of, to do these things, it introduces a level of transparency that is so difficult for so many people to deal with. And I often admit I went through that as well. It just takes some time, and you have to accept that this is a good thing, and you have to accept that everything's a work in progress. And when you can get past that, you can get past that. I can only show what's a final product. This approach is monumental. And again, the crowdsourcing, while it sounds like, wow, who wouldn't want that? Again, often people are concerned, or they're protective, or they're maybe embarrassed. They have to let others fill in the blanks. Why not? That's the real world. That's what we do every day. And again, this level of transparency, this level of crowdsourcing is a hard thing for most people to deal with. But like all good things that have important values, seeing them, trying them, once you realize it, you'll get it and you'll be excited by it. So wrap it up, just a couple more slides here. Again, those emergent social software platforms, what are those benefits? We talked all about these already. Letting people crowdsource, or letting people group edit information. Perfect. What a benefit. Incredible. I've seen it myself and at least 2 large organizations I've been at. Authoring, getting people to contribute and start that initial topic that maybe would have never done that. And it's just so neat to see that and seeing the pride in something. And sometimes it's not that. Sometimes it's people have that information. They haven't had a venue to find out how to get it out. So giving them these tools, all of a sudden, they just immediately are just much more helpful and contributing to a larger organization. Broadcast search. Well, this isn't searching. This is if I got a question, how do I get an answer? And I think I gave you an example a minute ago about an email exchange. So if you got a topic or question around something, start off, author it. Say, here's this topic A. And you say, topic A means blah, blah, blah. Well, don't put a lot more, or even put, I'm not sure, help me out here. That's that power of broadcast search. It could be a blog entry where you kind of raise a question. Could be a wiki page, like we said, but it's getting it out there, letting people see it, letting people come back and share and contribute with you. And network formation, maintenance. This is what we talked about a moment ago about finding people or strengthening the people you already know. I'm not trying to run you through the Lester's case studies, but I'm positive, and I've personally seen this many, many times, how these collaborative tools allow that. Again, collective intelligence is just a side benefit of that authoring, that group editing, etc. Even the broadcast search and self-organization. Again, back to structure. If a structure needs to emerge, it will emerge. If searching will, often I would say structure and taxonomy, as it historically has been represented in our field, is not always really going to solve our problems. We all remember Yahoo had those people in identifying the web. Well, that just didn't work out for them. It was pretty neat at the time, but the reality is the kind of information, the quantities, and the fluidity to that information, using these technologies such as labeling, searching against that, is what we need to get the kind of organization we're looking for truly. So again, roadmap for success. The book kind of gratefully gives, okay, great. We talked about a lot of things. What do you need to do? Stop doing what you used to do. Encourage people to move away from email, knowledge base, etc. Get them in these tools. Make them use the tools, etc. Find people in your organization that really are excited and motivated, etc. Letting them help drive that. Give them the influence others to listen to them, but let them run. And be evangelists per se for this. Technology gets kind of touchy. People really have a personal feeling about vendor A or vendor B or product C or product D. The reality is a variety of technologies can help you with this. And sometimes, often, I would say almost always, it's not one vendor or one open source project or one tool. It's a plethora. That's what we see on the internet. People use Facebook, people use Twitter, people use LinkedIn, people use Flickr. They're using a variety of things to make this happen. And it's okay if they're a little disjointed. Don't, get over it. It's okay. Move on. And then there are some, presented some organizational strategies. The normal things. What are you trying to get out of it? And then, since there's so many permutations and options, figure out what's going to make you see this as a positive outcome, and then work around that. Definitely look at it from the long haul. These are things we talked about a minute ago about organizationally. These are powerful change things here. That notion of transparency, that letting others help crowdsource and augment their materials. That's a long process to get people to change their mindsets and culture. So just accept that. Always, again, back to the believers, all these things, communicate, educate, evangelize. The more we can, and not just thou shalt use, or this is important, here's, showing those case studies, showing examples. all the time, in the hall, on other wiki pages, in your blogs. Those make this happen. And again, move these platforms into the flow. I think this is a theme, and I use the example over and over again. Myself, I really don't like a lot of email anymore because I'm in a little bit of a organizational role right now, and someone asking a question means many other people have that same question, and me giving the answer once means me giving the answer 10 times. So let's help do this. Change, make these platforms part of what you do every day. Use them nonstop. And again, we see that out there on the internet for people's public lives, or personal lives, I'm sorry, that they do in public, I guess, using these tools. And, there we go, measure progress, not ROI, some things in the book. And this phrase, show that these platforms are valued, means leaders, all those things we talked about, don't sit on the sidelines. Use these tools. Blog. Pat people in the back when they use them appropriately, and they work it into the flow, etc. So you're going to make this difference here. It's going to happen no matter what, but you're going to help show it's okay, especially for those folks that are a little worried, a little scared, a little resistant. So, I talked for a good long time. I'm realizing it's well over 25 minutes. The good news is this book, for a lot of us that already quote unquote get it, and I put myself in that bucket, it was a great book because it really affirmed things I already know, put some rigor around it, put some phrases, terminology, offered me a lot of great books that were kind of offshoot, brought up here that I definitely have augmented my reading list with, and expect to learn a lot more about from this information in the book. But, if you haven't already advocated wikis and that kind of stuff, please, wikis and blogs are the cornerstone of most of the information we're talking about right here. And I guess overall, I would say this book is a solid one. I loved it. It's on my permanent bookshelf, as it says there. It's one I'm going to loan out to others. In fact, others that I think could benefit from it as much as others that know this information well and want that affirmation. I'd say go buy it. It's on Kindle. It's on hardcover. And again, this is Lester Martin. The book was Enterprise 2.0 by Andrew McAfee. And thank you for your time.